Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'll be showing you how to draft a perfect structured bust cup using only one measurement. So if it's something you like to know how to do, watch the video to the end and don't forget to support me by subscribing to my channel, like, share and comment. So let's dive in. Now the first thing you need is measurement, and you only need one measurement to make this cup. So the measurement we'll be using is our bust radius. The bust radius is the distance from your bust point to your under bust. So when you get this measurement, you times it by 2. So mine is 3.5. I times it by 2, so it gave me 7 inches. So 7 inches is what I'll be using to construct my square. So it's like timesing your bust radius by 2. Whatever you have, you times it by 2. Then you draw out a square. Now the square, I'll be dividing it into 4. So that's what I'm doing. So you times your radius by 2. So it's going to give you both the length and the both the vertical and the horizontal. So that's what I'm using. I'm using my 7 inches for the length, and for the width too, I'm using my 7 inches. So that's the only measurement you'll be using to you need to draft out this cup. So you can see I'm drawing a square. So it was my radius I used to get this square line. So I'm figuring out the midpoint. So you draw a both vertical and horizontal using your radius measurement. And I told you the measurements, the radius is your bust point to your under bust. Yes, from your bust point to your under bust, that's the radius. So mine is 3.5 times 2, 7. So is the 7 I'm using for the width, and I'm using for the, yes, you can see the way I'm drawing it. I'm trying to figure out square line. Now after figuring out the square line, I'm trying to figure out the one for the center, the one that is going for the center, and the one that will be going for the side. Now my side, I'm more fuller at the side. So instead of me using my 3.5, I added half inches to my 3.5, yes, making it 7.5 inches. You can see on that side it was 4 inches I used. So the midpoint is 3.5, then the side is 4 inches. Now if you notice, if you're not fuller at that point, you can decide to use your measurement. Now I'm trying to marking 1 inches on both legs to tighten the bust. Now you can see I'm dropping down by 0.7 inches. Now how did I get the 1 inches I'm using to tighten the cup? The 1 inches came, it was the difference between my bust and my under bust. My bust measurement is 35, while my under bust is 31. So I have difference of 4 inches. 4 inches. Now if you divide 4 inches into 2, you have 2 inches. So I'm using 1 inches on both legs. Now for the center, I'll be tightening it with 0.5 on both legs. Now the 0.5 came because the difference between my shoulder to waist for the front is 16 inches. For the back is 14.5. So I have difference of 1.5 inches. So that's how I came about the tightening. Yes, that's how you can also calculate yours. So this particular measurement works for everybody. Just use the difference between your bust and your under bust, then the difference between your shoulder, front shoulder, and your waistline, that's your front, the difference between your front waistline and the back waist. So mine was 1.5 inches, so that was what I shared. So I used 1.5, I divided 1.5 into 4. So it gave me 0 point something, 0.35. So I rounded it up to 0.5. So that was why I'm using 0.5 inches to tightening the center. I hope we understand. Now the next thing is to bring out the shape of the cup. Now I'm dropping down, like from the center piece. I'll be marking 1 inches. I want a little opening for the cup, so I'll be coming down by 1 inches for the center, and on the side I'll be coming down by half inches. Yes, I'll go in by also quarter inches. Yes, then on the center piece I'll also be going in with quarter inches. Yes, that's, I want to shape my cup. So I'll connect this line to the leg of the cup. You can see the way I'm connecting it. Just follow the instruction. Yes, watch and follow what I'm doing. You connect it back to, I'm bringing out the shape of the cup. Now I'll connect with my curve ruler to the tip, to this, yes, the center tip. Yes, I'm bringing out the shape. You can see the upper part is already having a shape. So you use your curve ruler to shape that particular point. Yes, now the next thing is to shape the cup, yes, by connecting those lines together with your curve ruler. Now when you're doing this, you don't need a straight part, you need a curve ruler to do this part. Just connect the legs of your darts, the center to the lower part. So now you can see we already have a perfect cup. Now the next thing I'm doing is just to label my cup. So I have 3 patterns. So the upper part, the lower part, that's the center, then the side. Then I'll be numbering it and I'll be putting some indication. You can see I wrote center front, that's the upper center front, so that when I cut out my pattern I won't mix it up. So the lower center front, that's the down center front, and this is my side. This is the side. Yes. Now with this, now you can understand the upper side now is now like your over bust, like your chair, yes, where your cup is covering. Now the center is your bust point. Now the lower part is the under bust. Yes, you can label it that way. So the next thing is to cut out the pattern and cut out the dart leg. Yes, to bring out the shape of the cup. So you can shade it. But first shade, I'm shading the side I'm to cut off, because I'm cutting off those dart leg. I'm taking them out of the pattern so that the actual shape of the 3D cup can come out perfectly. So we can mold our cup and see the outcome of the cup. So the next thing is to bring my scissors and cut out the dart leg as I'm taking them off. So please, it's very important to label your pattern so that you won't mix it up when you're placing to cut on your real fabric. So it's very good to label your pattern. If you have watched this video to this point, don't forget to support me by subscribing, like, share with friends, and make comments. So I'm cutting out this, that I'm cutting them off the pattern. Then the next thing is I'll be taping it so that you can see the if the shape of the cup. Yes, I'll tape it together. I'll tape my pattern 1, 2, 3. I'll mold it together so that you can see the outcome of our cup. Now, this measurement I told you can work for anybody. Just understand the measurement you are to use. That's your radius, your nipple to under bust, then the difference of your bust and your bust under bust, then the difference between your front length, that's shoulder to waist, for the front and back. Yes, so when you understand all these measurements, you can use it to draft out your structural cup. Now these are my pattern. I've already cut them out. Then the next thing is um adding my green line. Yes, that when I'm placing it on my fabric, or when I'm to place it on my fabric, I won't mix it up. I'm adding the green line to the pattern. Then I'll be indicating the matching line where the where the 2 and 3, where I'm going to place here, then the 1. Now the next thing is to tape pattern 2 and 3 together. Yes, even if we're to sew, that's the first thing we'll be doing. We'll sew 2 and 3 together. You can see me taping the pattern pieces too. So I'll slightly notch the tape so that I can get a perfect, yes, so that when I'm placing it, it won't stress me. So that you can see the way I'm placing them together, aligning it, making sure everything is perfectly aligned the way it should be. So this is me taping it together. Now I've taped them together. Now the next thing is to tape the upper parts of the cup. Now if you have any excess, you trim it. Yes, you blend it. You trim it off and blend it. Yes. Now the next thing is to tape the upper parts of our cup to the lower parts. So you can see me trying to align my center line. Yes, trying to align it with the piece so that everything will be perfectly, yes, so that the shape will come out well. So this is me trying to make sure the pattern is well aligned, both at the side and at the center piece. So I'm done aligning it. You can see the way the cup is already forming. Yes, the shape is already coming out. You can see the volume inside. Yes, you can see it having a volume inside. So that's how to make your sculptural cup. So, so this is how the cup is looking, both the inside and at the outside. Now I told you, if you have any excess, you just blend it and take off. Yes, make sure you blend it and take off any excess you have. Just take it off. Yes, so this is how the cup is looking. Now the next thing is to start with our body. Yes, now I noticed the upper part is too covered, so I decided to take off 0 point, like quarter inches from the upper side. It's all about choice. Yes, you can decide to leave it the way it is if you want it to be more covered, but I just, like, I want it more revealing, so that was why I removed 0 0.2. Now the next thing is to start with our body. Now I've bring out the construction line, so I'm figuring out my shoulder to bust point, my shoulder to waist, Then my shoulder to hip. So my shoulder to bust point is 10, my shoulder to hip and my shoulder to waist is 16, my shoulder to hip is 24 inches. So I'm bringing out those lines. Now the next thing is to mark the shoulder. The shoulder is 7 inches. So I'll drop my neck. I'm using 3 inches, which is not standard. It's just your own personal preference. So I'm using 3 by 3. Yes. So I'm going to use my curve to curve the neckline out. Now I'll drop down by 1 inches for the shoulder slope. I'm dropping down by, then I connect it to the neck tip. Yes, connect it to the neck tip. Now the next thing is to measure my armhole depth. My armhole depth is 7.5 inches. So I'll measure it from, yes. Then I'll draw a straight line. Now I'm trying to interpret my bust point on the armhole line. So my bust is 8.7. I told you is 35, which is going to be 8.7. So I'll mark it down. Then I'll look for the midpoint of my armhole. Then I'll go in by 0.5 inches. Yes. Look for the midpoint, then I'll go in by 0.5 inches. Now I'll use my curve ruler to curve out the armhole, the shape of my armhole. Now I've curved it out. Then the next thing is to continue to interpret my other measurements. So this is me trying to check my bust, the correct measurement I interpreted on the armhole line. You can repeat the same thing on your bust point. It's not a must. Now I'm going to figure out the underbust. My underbust is 13.5 inches. So the difference between my bust point and my underbust is 3.5 inches, which was what I used to draft out my cup. So you can see it is already coming on the pattern. Yes. So I'll interpret my waist. My waist is 31. Same thing with my underbust. So I'll divide it, whatever I have, I'll connect it. So this is me shaping both my bust point, underbust and waist. Now the next thing is to move to the hip line. My hip is divided by 4 is 9. So I interpret it and mark and connect it to the waistline. So I'm done connecting. Now I told you it's not going to have a dart, but the difference between my front and my back is 1 inches. From my shoulder to front, no, yes, is 1.5 inches. So I'll mark it. Now I already have my bust dart. Now I'm figuring out my apex to apex, which is 3.5 inches. Then I'll connect my bust dart to, yes, that point. Now if you notice, I didn't add the waist dart. Now this is me coming up. I went up with 1 inches from my bust point. Then I came in with half in. I went up with, sorry, I went up with half inches. I came, that's the center piece. I marked half inches. Yes. Now this is where my cup is going to, yes, this is where my cup is going to be formed. So that's the center. I'm trying to figure out the center. Now you can see I've cut out my front, and I'm tracing the front to cut out the back by just eliminating the bust dart. Yes, so the front and back is basically the same thing, just because we have the bust dart at the front. So I'm just trying to shape I don't want to. You can also start all over by interpreting your shoulder, your armhole, but I don't want to do that. So that was why I just placed my front and I eliminated the bust that, because the length of my back shoulder to waist is different from the front. So that's the only difference. But all other things is the same thing. But the armhole, instead of coming in with half inches, so my armhole is just, I went in with quarter inches. So I'm just shaping out the whole measurement. Now I'm going to remove the bulge at the back. So I went in at my waistline with 0.7 inches. Yes, that's the quarter. Yes, from the waist. So I'm trying to connect it to blend it down like that. So I've take off the zip bulge. Now at the front, I want to close my bust dart because we don't need it. We've already used it to draft out our cup. Now I will measure my shoulder, the rest of my shoulder. I'll look for the midpoint. Then I'll draw a straight line to meet my bust point. That's my apex. Yes, my nipple line. Then I'll slash the line. I'll open it and transfer my dart to my shoulder. Yes, to the midpoint of my shoulder. So I've transferred my shoulder. Now the next thing is to bring out my cup and bring out the shape of my cup. You know, the dart is already in my cup, so I don't need it. So that was why I transferred it to the shoulder. Now, if you notice the way the whole pattern is going, by the time I shape out where my cup is going to sit, so the dart is already going off the pattern. So that's how you can eliminate your bust dart. Now, the next thing is, because it's a dartless corset, the next thing is to just indicate the placing of your boning. Yes, so this is me just indicating where I'm going to be placing my boning on my pattern. So it's now your own personal preference, the way you want it. Now I'm trying to figure out the length I'm using for the top. So I decided to, like, is to the getting the blouse to my waist is too long, so I reduce it by using 22 inches. So I'm just covering the hemline with my curve ruler. Now the same thing I did to the front, I'll be doing it to the back, where the length is stopping at the front. So the length is also going to stop there at the back. Now you can decide to shape it to whichever length you want. Now the back too, I'm bringing out my neckline for the back. So I'm taking off, like, from the center. For my armhole line, I went in with, from the center front back, I went in with 1.5 inches. Now the same thing I did by indicating indicating the placement of my boning. So that was the same thing I did. Now this is me trying to tighten my waist by just removing 1 inches from the waist, because I'll be adding boning. So I'm trying to snatch my waistline. Yes, I'm trying to reduce it. Now I've cut out the pattern for the back. Now the next thing is to cut. Now the back, if you feel like you want to return it, yeah, like your shoulder, to, you don't want it to open like a tube, you want to return it, you can decide to make an opening at the back, maybe bringing out another material, or with a illusion neck. So there are different styles you can change it to. You can see the way I cut out and do the placing. Now for the front too, if you feel like you want to replace it maybe with illusion neck, or you're bringing back a stripe, you can decide to keep your pattern, but me, I won't be needing it, so I'm taking it off. So this is me cutting out where the cup will be sitting on the pattern. Yes, so I'm taking out all the excess, and you can see the way it's looking already. Yes, the back and front is aligned. Yeah. And this is my cup. Yes, if you have watched this video to the end, to this point, what are you waiting for? Press the subscribe button, like, make comments, share with friends, and don't forget to always watch my video whenever I post. So see you in my next video.